When we first started doing the investigation stage, I mean, the issue was it had to be about something about flooding or about flood management. And so we initially, because our school is right next to Lake Michigan, it's just a couple blocks away, we were thinking, because that was such a huge issue, was the levels of Lake Michigan, which were exceptionally high. And so the kids were like, oh, that should be our thing. That's flooding. It's causing problems. The bike path is underwater, la, la, la. But then when we started to do the research, they realized really quickly, like, there's no way that high school kids are going to solve that problem, right? There's no way that they're going to be able to mitigate that disaster. And so that required us to pivot. It required us to go in a different direction. And when the kids started talking about, well, like, where do we have flooding problems? And one of the kids in the group spoke up, well, I had flooding problems. She lives in a basement apartment, and that summer her mother's apartment had gotten flooded, and it was like under 5 feet of water. They lost everything. And then she later admitted to all of us, like shared with the group, that she was homeless because of that. For 3 months, they lived out of a car, out of a minivan. And that was like really, that was like a game changer. Like that really was a wake up call for the kids. Like, wow, this is my community. This is like my fellow student. So we ended up doing a survey through Google Forms. We sent it out to all of our community members through our school network. And we found out that a lot of people had flooding issues, in the last couple of years. We did a 2-year window. And then we further pursued it and then started contacting some of the aldermen, and we found out, like, indeed, this really was an issue. And so that was kind of like the leverage point that I was able to use as an instructor to kind of say, okay, well then let's see what we can do to solve that problem. That was it was a very meaningful problem to them as community members and as students in this community. And it was also meaningful for them that we could try to figure out some sort of a strategy to solve. And that was really powerful. Okay, so implementation. So when we actually got to the point where we had won this and we had funds to do stuff, it was first off, it was so exciting. Like the kids were really like, oh, we won, but then there was the concept like, oh, hey, we can actually start to do projects. And we were able to get rain barrels. One of the things I really wanted to get was not just the rain barrel, but I wanted to make sure we had all of the materials we needed to make rain barrels effective. So, in my community, it's a low-income community. Like, we can't just give them rain barrels because they're not going to have the saw to disconnect their downspout. They're not going to have the screws that they need to tap into the thing. They're not going to have watering cans. They're not going to have hoses. They're not going to have cinder blocks to raise it up to make it useful. So all of that was part of our thing. And the reason why we did that is we ended up getting several rain barrels that we've used then as sort of like raffles to kind of draw people in the door. So now we've had 2 events that we've hosted where the kids have presented their project to encourage community members to disconnect their downspouts from the storm sewer system. And we've been able to give out several of these rain barrels, and we've done it through a raffle system for people who participated. I think we've reached out probably at this point, probably at about 25 families. And the kids have had lots of conversations, and they've actually had conversations with community members because they're out there kind of like preaching to the cause now. Our next steps, we're not even close to being done, fully implemented, even though we're a year out. We still want to do brochures and deliver brochures door to door about like how it's important to disconnect storm sewers and how they can do it. And the kids, like, that's part of our budget. That was part of the budgeting process. That also was a really good skill that kids got from it. The follow-up too is we've been in contact with 2 of the local aldermen who were the people who had helped us on the front end of this when they were giving us information. They push it out from their resources, like through their Facebook feeds and Instagram or whatever it is that they use. So that's been able to, we've been able to leverage that. We've also, because of the stuff that we're doing and because we're trying to do some stuff at some of the local like food markets, farmers markets. Yes, I could speak English. But so because they're trying to do some of the stuff at the farmers markets, now we've been able to get in touch with another like green industry that's trying to do some development in the community. And we're hoping we can leverage that into doing more projects in the future. Maybe that would be a revenue stream that we could use to further it. And we are talking about doing stuff at the farmers market, like actually presenting, like having a table set up where we can talk to people. So it's really good for the kids, like great public speaking experience, and it's a good reach out. And it's teaching people in the community how they can help to make their community safer and less make it more flood proof, resiliency.
Do you think 5 years from now your kids are more likely to be involved in like community resilience and stuff?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it was very empowering for them. The kids were able to really realize that they can make a difference. Like their actions can actually have an impact. And one of the things that I've spoken to you about before was, kids are so hopeless about climate change. And they're really depressed and demoralized about it, like strikingly so. And I think adults don't see that very much. And I see it because I'm working with kids on stuff like this. They're so hopeless. And I want them to know that they can effectuate change. And they got that from this project. Like they were like, oh, like we can make a difference. Like really, truly, they felt like they could make a difference. And already these kids are doing stuff. Like these were like freshmen and sophomores. Already they're like, they've got the fire in their belly. They're trying to do more stuff. They want to do more things. It's really powerful. It's really cool. It's neat that way.